Hi everyone, welcome to the Rare Record Room. This is where I'll show you some of the LPs in my record collection, give you a little background to the artists and their recordings, and provide some examples of the record company labels, and noting some important variations in text or differences between sleeves, that sort of thing. Record collecting has been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember. I hope you'll find these informative and useful, but ultimately enjoyable. With that in mind, let's get straight into the content. In this video, I'll be looking at some records from simply the most successful and influential band ever. I'm of course talking about the Fab Four, the Beatles. In today's episode, I'm going to describe and illustrate some of my stereo pressings of the Beatles' debut LP, Please Please Me. These copies were pressed in the 1960s and 1970s. The first, and certainly the most significant of these, is the original pressing in stereo issued on the black and gold Parlophone label design in April 1963. Indeed, this is such an important pressing and a major Beatles rarity on vinyl that I've given it its own documentary video, which I would recommend you have a look at. So moving on to the more common and long-lived label design in the 1960s, which was the familiar black and yellow design of the Parlophone label, one of which is shown here. This style of label was used from late spring of 1963 until 1969. Featuring on the third mono and stereo pressings all the way up to the seventh mono and the eighth stereo pressings in 1969. Copies pressed between these years will feature subtle variations to the label or within the label text, although the bold yellow company name was ever present, and these differences are detailed comprehensively within the Rare Record Price Guide, which I would encourage anyone interested in this to consult. The example demonstrated here, incidentally, is the fifth stereo pressing, which dates from the latter half of 1963 and is identified by the presence of the recording first published 1963 text, which has been added just below the matrix number, and the large stereo wording on the top margin of the record sleeve. Incidentally, all Please Please Me sleeves printed in the 1960s by Ernest J. Day and Garrett Lofthouse were the flipback variety. This fifth pressing stereo is valued at £150. A brand new Parlophone label design was introduced in 1969, featuring mainly silver print on a black background, and for the first time the appearance of the parent company EMI's boxed logo printed in white, and 9 thin silver lines running horizontally across the label. The rim text on these copies reads "The Gramophone Company Limited" and "Made in Great Britain" at the foot of the label at 6 o'clock. This particular example has a flipback sleeve with the smaller stereo wording on the top margin. 1969 pressings are housed in either plain white or sepia LP advertising inner sleeves. This copy is valued at £100. In the early 1970s there was another change to the label design when a second boxed EMI logo was added at 12 o'clock on the label. The printing of the two EMI boxes was reversed so that the background is white and the letters are now in black. In all other respects, the label was the same as the 1969 version, retaining the Gramophone Company rim text and the Made in Great Britain text at 6 o'clock. Inner sleeves were again either plain white or sepia-toned advertisers. This particular copy has a flipback sleeve printed by Garrett Lofthouse, as all were from the late 1960s, but the top margin of the front cover displays no stereo wording. The final version I'm going to demonstrate is the revised 2 EMI box logo, which was introduced in the mid-1970s. These are identified by a reset rim text which now reads EMI Records in place of the Gramophone Company, and the Made in Great Britain text is repositioned from 12 o'clock to around 4 o'clock, as can be seen here. Another more subtle difference is that the silver print is now darker and greyer in tone. The LP cover is a front laminated non-flip back type, and the rear cover text is marginally reset. The sleeve manufacturer, Garrett & Lofthouse, is now positioned centrally at the foot, and the patent pending wording has been dropped. At the top right corner of the rear sleeve, the catalogue number and the large boxed notice has been shifted a little to the left. The front cover margin once again carries the large bold stereo wording found on the earliest 1960s stereo copies. The inner bag for this pressing is a printed company paper sleeve showing a patent number, and rather helpfully a date code at the foot 4/77, indicating a manufacture date, pressing date of April 1977. This copy is valued at £25. Later record covers from the 80s follow this design also, but they have a varnished rather than a laminated front cover, and most will feature a barcode. And that, in a nutshell, describes the 1960s and 70s pressings from Parlophone EMI of the Beatles' debut LP, Please Please Me. That's your lot for this episode from the Rare Record Room. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did like the video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more and to receive notifications for any new uploads. Thanks for watching. See you next time.